10,000 Indian voices. This means a lot for everybody who's been at Acumen over the last few years. But a lot of guests who've come from overseas have just heard this from today morning, talking about a survey, a report, and what it entails. We've had some amazing sessions yesterday, and I think I can speak personally on behalf of myself and the team, that we've learned a lot. They were dignitaries, government officials, ambassadors, Niti Aayog. I mean, you say the word and we had it. They've all had perspectives. It's really, really important to know what's happening in India from policymakers to people who implement it. And equally from the universities, because they are the ones who are sitting thousands of miles away telling us what is workable. It's very different for us to say this is what we want, but then it's the universities who tell us, well, this will work, and this may need a little bit of a tweak. Throughout today morning, we've had, again, very, very interesting sessions where we've had colleagues give us their perspective when they're on ground. The information on this report is not something that you can find from Google. Type the information and you get 100 answers. This is the reality of what colleagues live on a daily basis. The 10,000 voices is a reflection for us to hear what the student really wants. We all want the good. We want to do things for students. We are all here for the outcome, to give students a choice, look at their career aspirations, but what do they think is equally important? For me, it is the most important. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panel to you. We've got colleagues who represent universities from across the globe, very, very senior advisors, principal advisors, working at Acumen, representing different universities. I think it'll be fair for them to speak a couple of lines about themselves before we start the discussion. Over to you, Sonu.
Very good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sonu Himani. I have been working with Acumen since past 11 months, and I represent King's College London as a senior partnership officer. Prior to that, I've been working, I've had around 15 years of working experience while working with British Council as the head of higher education. And I'm very thrilled to be here on this panel, sharing some of the experiences and practices that we followed earlier or we are going to follow now. And looking forward to engaging with you all at the panel and also after the panel. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ritika. Thank you, Sonu. My name is Shishir Upadhyay, and I represent University of Southern California as principal advisor. So I have around 15 plus years of experience in higher education and health. I came into higher education when Nisha called me while I was working with Elsevier. So that's how I came to SANAM S4, and I'm really loving coming here, representing institutions and contributing to best of my capacities. Thank you so much.
Hello everybody, I'm Ritu Sharma and I work for Acumen as supporting Victoria University, Melbourne. I've been in the education industry for over 15 years, from representing universities in Australia to UK, to the agent side, and being a teacher myself. It's a fascinating journey. I think it's an ever-growing and an ever-learning field we all are in. And I'm very glad to be sitting here and sharing our experiences from the students' perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Ritu. Good afternoon, everybody. I know post-lunch sessions are always heavy. I am Vinita Desai, and I've been with Acumen for the last 3 years, with supporting University of Auckland as a senior recruitment advisor, working in the South Asia region. Like Ritu, I've worked in the space of education for over 15 years now. I've been working as an assistant professor for a while, for almost a decade, and then moved on to international education. And thank you so much for having us here. It's going to be very interesting to listen to colleagues and discuss about our experiences here in recruitment and student mobility. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you, everyone. Chitra came and said that before you leave, please take your copy of the 10,000 Voices. So let's tell you a little bit about this. This is a primary research, probably, I dare say, one of the most authentic reports you'll see and hear about the student population, which is 1/5 of the world's total population. We've taken a demographic of the age group between 18 to 25, but the panel here probably speaks to the demographic of 16 to 25. Each one of them came and told you, sorry, my colleagues, of how much experience they bring, a wealth of experience. This panel, when we were deciding of who should be speaking, we were very, very clear that we want in-country representatives, colleagues who are on the ground, but doing slightly different roles, not just student mobility, which we call the presence, in-country representation, but people who work in the undergraduate space, colleagues who do brand positioning, colleagues who do partnerships, because each one of them, at some point or the other, touch on the student experience. So you'll hear their experiences from different lenses. So it's not just about different countries, but it's also the different lens and the different roles they do. I'm going to start from the far end, if I may, Vinita. I know this was not prompted, but if you don't mind. From your perspective, when you speak to students and you have that experience of engaging with them to go to your university, what do you think are the key drivers?
Thank you for that interesting question, Ritika. And yeah, I would just want to, cite some of my observations in the last 5 years in this space, that there is a chunk of students, around 30–40% of students, who know where they want to go, who know what they want to study. And so they are very particular about the country that they want to go, their rankings and reputations and academics and research. So these are guys who know where they want to go and they have a reason to come to you. There's another 50% or so who come to you, these I would call as, researchers who've done their comparative study of different countries and come to you with all of the information they have. And then their key deciding factor are very important. That's where we pitch in to talk about our country. So for me, from a New Zealand perspective, when these researchers come to me having, the comparative study that they've already done, then it's important for me to highlight from a New Zealand perspective about factors like employability. So I do talk about the employability rate at University of Auckland, which is really very high, and reasons of why you should be studying in Auckland, because Auckland is like Mumbai, the largest financial hub, and there are plenty of opportunities for employment. Students are also very keen on understanding opportunities, not just for employment, but also talking in terms of part-time opportunities and, of course, internships. So these are some very important factors that students look at, apart from the fact that obviously New Zealand, until recently, Australia announced their post-study work rights. One of our USPs was to talk about the 3-year post-study work rights. So these are some very important factors, apart from the usual ones, and I'd allow my colleagues to talk more about their perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the key driving factors, in my opinion, is the ROI, post-completion of the program. And I think post-pandemic, another factor which has suddenly kind of taken all eyes is the safety and the emotional support which a university offers to the students. And parents especially are very concerned around how the university or that respective country can support the students emotionally as well. These are the two key drivers, apart from the other broader aspects, in my opinion.
Thank you. So one thing which I like to highlight, my fellow panelists have shared some valuable insights, but key drivers depends also on whether the students is going for undergraduate program, graduate program, and even in graduate, whether that person is going for master's or PhD. So driver is different for each population. For undergraduate student, the overall university experience matter. And they will look at each and every component. They will look at extracurriculars. They will look at whether I will be able to participate in student clubs and organizations or not. What's the student outcome? How I will be able to interact with other departments. If suppose a student is going in engineering, he wants to know that, can I take classes in music department or dance department or I'll be able to pursue my sports passion. But if a student is going for the master's program, they are very focused. They want to go and want to know the student outcomes, career statistics, companies that comes to the campus. And all these are very important factor. And PhD students, they are pretty much independent. They know the department, they know the faculty, they know which topic they are going to research upon. So driver depends based on socioeconomic sector also. You know, if you see the Maslow's hierarchy theory, the higher order needs are satisfied later. You know, the basic needs comes first. So those who are looking for, you know, moving from a generation where no one went to college, they love to go and study first and get a job. And those who are coming from affluent background, they would love to explore. They want to go in an area which no one else has gone in. So needs is the important factor in deciding what drives someone.
Sonu, how about your view?
Thank you so much. Well, I kind of agree and resonate with all my panel members, but there are some of the key highlights I would like to speak about the UK. I think what has been the key driver, I would say the post-study work visa, because during pandemic, while other countries were like having a dwindling situation, UK managed to remain at its top. Though it was difficult, but I think the post-study really did give a good push. Apart from that, I think the scholarships opportunities that the students they have, the wide range of scholarship opportunities that has been provided to Indian students. Like very recently, I read that even the Chancellor's Scholarship by Birmingham, which very recently they announced. So there are lots of scholarship opportunities. And yesterday, Alison was speaking about the great scholarships, the Shivning Scholarship, the British Council STEM Scholarship. So there are lots of scholarship opportunities. I think so. That's another driving factor that students, why do they opt for the UK, and what's driving them towards the UK. I would also say that when it comes to parents, they prefer UK is because of the distance. If they want to reach, for any purpose, it's only 8 hours journey. So I think, and the time difference is also not very far. It's either 4.5 hours or 5.5 hours. So I think in parents' perspective, the distance is a major factor. And in terms of other thing is that, we have a large diaspora of Indians over there. The current Prime Minister is also, from the Indian origin. His roots are from India. So I think, these are some of the key drivers that, that kind of, pull students towards the UK. Apart from that, of course, there are various other factors, which is about the flexibility of the courses. And I'm not sure whether you all know, but the oldest universities that has been set up, one of them is the Oxford and the other is Cambridge. Oxford was set up in 1096 era and Cambridge in 1209. So which are like the oldest universities, even when the other universities were not even, out in the world. So I think, these are some of the reasons as to why, anyone chooses UK or why the students are attracted towards the UK. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Just to make sure and see that everyone's awake, we're only on question number 1. I'm going to open this question to the audience because we're talking about 10,000 voices. And it's really important to know if you have experienced any other drivers when you've been conversing with students. Anybody from the audience has a different story or perspective, we'd love to hear that.
I'll just add a little bit of the US perspective. Sorry, my name is Apurva and I represent Wright State University. Obviously, I'm an employee of Acumen, so we need to be, compliant. So, we need to be careful with how we represent. So let's put it very clearly. So yeah, coming to the answer or my perspective of UK, USA. So there is a lot of talks about campus safety. So that is, as we know, US is sometimes very, I won't say popular, but very unpopular, for the, the shootings that happen and it's always a sensitive topic to talk about in public forums. But I think now you see parents and kids start to have that conversation. Where is your campus located? Do you have campus police? How do you go about the student safety? So I think that is another key driver that we now see over the course of last 4 years. So, or again, the trend keeps on changing, but that's just one that I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Apurva. I think Tanushri has a question as well. She's raising her hand. Can we request the mic there?
I just wanted to add from the Canadian perspective. And I found that apart from what all the panelists mentioned, one of the key things was how the government responded to the pandemic. That was also very, very critical for parents. And they observed it very silently. And I think for Canada it worked, because the Canadian government was the first one to come out and open and say that even if you study online, you will still get the post-study work visa. So I think the government decisions and how they handled the pandemic also played a very, very important role.
Thank you, Tanushree. Thank you. Appreciate that. Since Tanushree's touched on the pandemic, how can we have a panel without that? Sorry, there is another question I see. Sorry, another perspective. Yes, sure, Tom.
Thank you, Tom, with University of Central Lancashire in the UK. Just a few things that sort of came into my mind, and also working with my colleagues here that they've mentioned as well. Number one was sort of the history of the UK, that vast history, the relations that we've had, but the culture, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's the sports that you've got in the UK that obviously young people are really interested in. The second thing as well was the finances, obviously being a 3-year degree in the UK, and actually usually typically slightly less in terms of the actual overall cost. And the third thing as well, it's a small country. So it's easy to get around. Whether you're in the northwest of England, it's easy to get over to London or down to London, visit Scotland, visit Wales, and also it's a gateway into Europe as well. So from a travel perspective and exploration, I think the UK is obviously a great place for that as well. So those are some things that we've talked about within the team as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that perspective. Very much appreciated. Speaking about the pandemic and the new normal, as I like to call it, I just want to know from all of you, when you're engaging with students, we've all had learnings. It's just constant learning. We're evolving. I think this has been the best innovation phase for us as practitioners who are on the ground. What do you see are the differences that you hear from students in terms of career opportunities, academics, or all of those things? And I'm going to request Shishir to begin this, because I know with the US there's been quite a graph which has gone up and down. So your views, and then of course the rest of the colleagues, if you can pitch in as well.
Pandemic has taught us a lot of things. One thing that it has taught us a lot is, being humane in our approach, being more understanding of other situation. And most of the universities, administrators are aware of it. So last year, especially during pandemic, if you see, the biggest example is when the results were out, both for CBSE, IB, or universities. I think all the universities were very open, very supportive for students, hey, it's okay, we understand, we are here. And that empathy is very much important in all the communication. And, gone are the days when admissions office has the sole responsibility to reaching out to students. Now it's a joint responsibility of the leadership, executives, faculty members, deans, and admission office to work together to ensure that, the brand value, the course curriculum, what you're going to teach, the industry tie-ups, what will be the student experience when the student lands up on campus should be communicated. And more prompt when the queries are coming for any particular questions. It can come for a faculty, it can come for an admission office, it can come for a leadership stance on a particular initiative. So that humane approach, being more empathetic, and the quickness and the quality of response, that's important.
I think humanity is definitely one of the key factors. In my opinion, what learning from the pandemic is adaptability. How have universities adapted so quickly to the new normal? Just to give you an example of Victoria University, we teach in a very unique model called the block model, where we teach only one unit at a time for undergrad students. We've been teaching it since 2018, before the pandemic, but post the pandemic, we got an opportunity to actually open 4 intakes a year. So yes, it's a big recruitment opening for the university, but it also becomes an opportunity for the students to have multiple entry points in a given year. So given the results are delayed, the online exams, there is a lot of delay from the Indian institutions as well. The students have an opportunity to have entries at multiple points without missing the opportunity to, without missing a subject, which was usually the case as well. So something as revolutionary as block model for us has proved a boom because it's benefited the students and the parents and has in a way benefited the university to have multiple recruitment points as well. So I think that's something which is incredible, which Victoria University has definitely done in this space.
Well, quite a few of my thoughts are discussed by Shishir and Ritu, but as I look at it and reflect, I think the pandemic has taught us all to pause and embrace change, like Shishir mentioned, but also to reflect and revisit our vision, mission, goals and objectives and values and approaches in which we were looking at attaining them. And as a consequence, I think Eric Lithander mentioned in his panel discussion yesterday, New Zealand has a very collaborative approach. So I appreciate the fact that he said that we would want to be competitive but collaboratively. And I think that's very important. It's very important that we work together. And I've seen the pandemic bringing us from transactional values to moving into more of transformational values, where we work together and we maintain to have our competitions in our own space. Also interestingly, I would want to cite an example of flexibility that I've seen in the academics, which wasn't as before the pandemic, is the fact that, for example, we've had teething issues. I'm sure most of you know that New Zealand was the last to open its border, and we've had a lot of teething issues with visas. Earlier, students would simply defer to the next intake, but now with the pandemic, the academics have gone very flexible in terms of extending students to be able, until they are able to move to the campus, we have offered them online study. So that transition of moving into these synchronous and asynchronous modes of learning has been really a consequence of the pandemic. And there are several other examples that I could cite, but it's very interesting to see how academics have really moved into a more flexible mode after pandemics. Yeah, thank you.
Well, from the UK's perspective, I think what pandemic really taught was that, communication was a key factor. Because everything happened so sudden, so communicating on timely basis with the students, with the parents, became a very integral factor for all the universities. And how did they do it? They had to find a common platform. So I think that time British Council stepped in, and any information about any university was put up on the British Council website, where students could go and check in and find out what the latest update was, whether the university was open for an online class, or whether there was a face-to-face class, or was there any other support that the university was providing. The other thing was the support that while the students were facing some challenges, which is in terms of food or in terms of medicines or in terms of any kind of social help, the student communities within the universities kind of really did well, I would say, wherein they joined in together, communities came together. So yes, it made everybody more humble and brought everybody together on the same boat. Having said that, it was interestingly also helped a lot of people, where I would like to quote an example, where one of the universities, they had to go for an internship project, but because of pandemic, they couldn't go. So what literally happened was that, which I have witnessed myself, they went for a virtual internship, wherein there were students from the university, around 10 students, and from other 5 countries, another 10 students, which in a normal day wouldn't happen, all got together for a virtual internship. They're traveling to each other's world in a virtual world. sharing practices, sharing good practices, sharing the knowledge, and at the end of the internship, they actually did not feel that they did not go to each other's country because there was so much of exchange of knowledge and information through the virtual space. So I think that was a very good thing that happened. In fact, there was a survey that was done by Deloitte to identify that, how pandemic has affected, the young audience around the world. And as much as, everybody's got impacted in a not so good way, a lot of youngsters felt that it has impacted them in a better way, because now they're able to manage their work-life balance better, and they know what they don't want than what they want. So I think, these were some of the pointers that, that pandemic helped. And importantly, I think now the mindset has shifted from moving from the metro cities to the non-metro cities because of the pandemic, because how the industries, they have also started, hiring people from the non-metro cities because they see talent there. Likewise, I think even universities have started seeing that there is a lot of appetite in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, and they are moving away and shifting their mindset only from not focusing only on, say, like, the metros in India, but also in the non-metro or the upcoming metros. So I think this is what pandemic has kind of, changed the perception of universities and how they work and how they hire or recruit students. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I think we've spoken about communication, whether you say that things were put on the British Council or you're engaging with students. And communication's a word which is very widely used, but it means very different things to different people. I'm humbled and I'm privileged that I have one of the largest teams that I get to work with at Acumen. And a lot of times I said, oh, I didn't realize this happened. And I said, I don't see this email. And I check my emails probably, very, very often, every few minutes. And somebody said, oh, I sent you on WhatsApp. And I said, okay, but I don't have my phone next to me. I'm working on my email. So I think communication is got a lot of different connotations. Now, moving at that, a lot of people yesterday were also talking about, what we can do, and a lot of times when I'm at conferences, people talk about social media, digital presence, and all of those things. But because 10,000 Voices is the voice of students, in your perspective, I'd like to hear what feedback that you've got when you're engaging with students of how they like to be approached. So it's all right of how we want to approach them. If it were left to me, I'd send them an email, but probably they'd want to see a WhatsApp or, have a communication or an Instagram page or all of those things, which are slightly different. So anyone who'd like to start, Ritu, you spoke about the block model saying now you can engage 4 times more. So if you want to give it a stab, and then probably the others can.
Yeah, I think the mindsets have changed. I think for parents, they want to engage face-to-face because that's their comfortability. That's how they were raised. But for students, it's a very technology-driven brain which they have. If they have something on a phone, why would they really walk up to an agent office? So definitely, post-pandemic, there is a growth on social media marketing, which is pretty aggressive. The Indian student market is definitely more aggressive on Instagram. Nepal, for instance, is more on TikTok. Sri Lanka is again Facebook. Bangladesh is Facebook as well. So definitely social media is influencing. I would also like to add on the agent side, there is an influx of smaller agents coming in, and tying up with the aggregators is something which has become very popular post-pandemic as well. There are pros and cons to it. There are threats and advantages to it, but how the university mitigates those risks is something which is another discussion altogether. But I think, yes, media has its pluses, and students at the moment, they are definitely more comfortable connecting over social media platforms, over Zoom, over Skype, than coming face-to-face to any of the events or offices. What do you think?
I like the way you set the context, because it's very interesting for us to know we've actually moved from very traditional ways of approaching students to, adapting social media. And it's very interesting to see, even as universities, our endeavors to have those, campus tours, those videos to tell students about. I think the visual appeal is really important for students. So, whether it's about, it's an alumni voice or something about the growth and development of an alumni, or, simply taking them through the campus, it's very interesting because these really appeal to the Gen Z as we call them. And also interestingly, I think talking about the agent aggregators, I've seen them as a boom, especially during the pandemic, because it was the best way to have a larger outreach, and also the fact that they're very good for brand building initiatives, I think. So yeah, like Ritu said, they have their own pros and cons, but another way to look at engagement, and I think high school especially, there are several other platforms that I wouldn't want to name here because it might be very biased if I name a few, but there are several other platforms where we've interacted with high school counselors who are our key point of contact with the students. So, and I appreciate the fact that in high schools, they would not want interference of agents because they would want to maintain that quality there. So that's a very interesting way of engaging with high school students, directly approaching the counselor. So I think most of us are in the counselors group as well, where counselors put in, put in their request of, okay guys, we're having something here, would you all want? So it's a very nice collaborative approach of reaching the high school students. And these days there have been another trend of, directly approaching institutions where I feel students find that more safer than approaching universities through an agent, because they're often misled. And it's nicer when they come through an institution directly, because the institution obviously has a check, gives them a background of what is the seminar or the address or the fair going to be. So that way, I think we can keep the institutions and us, we can keep a check on quality. So interesting ways, yeah, apart from the agent, not that we are looking at discarding the agent model or we don't appreciate it anymore, but there are different ways of approaching, and yeah, thanks to the pandemic for that. Thank you.
I think, I resonate with Ritu, which mentioned about this Generation Z. I was just reading a report that was developed by Ernst & Young, wherein they have kind of, shared as to, where do Generation Z and millennials spend their most of their time on. Very interestingly, if you see, the Generation Z spends 77% of their time on YouTube, as opposed to millennials, I'm also one of the millennials. I spend my time on Facebook, which I'm like, yeah, bang on. But then they use YouTube, which is followed by Instagram, and followed by Snapchat. So what does it mean? Well, I would like to call this particular generation as a jiffy generation, because their attention span is actually less than 5%, less than 5 seconds, which is again proven by a proper research that their attention span doesn't go beyond 5 seconds. So whatever we need to do, whatever we need to communicate, or whatever we need to attract, it has to be within that 5 seconds. So we have to remember that 5 seconds, we have to bang on, get their attention and get that communication message right on, whether we use Instagram, Snapchat, or Facebook, because these are the 3 important mediums where the students would like us to communicate through. Other important medium would be having an ambassador, or having their friends talk about your university when they are there at your universities. I think, it's that personal touch makes a lot of difference. The word of mouth, no matter whatever happens, the word of mouth will always remain high. So I think, we should all leverage on the word of mouth, whether, we create videos, again, less than 5 seconds, not more, or whether, we create, any kind of Instagram blog, or, or we put up pictures or a story. But I think these are some of the mediums that, we need to start reaching out to audience before their attention span becomes even less than 5 seconds. Thank you.
5 seconds is getting me thinking. I have a question that I'd like to ask the audience, and this has just come up because the panel has shared such interesting views. Sonu's given us data points on what happens with Instagram, what age group, what Facebook, and all of those things. And Ritu started the conversation saying, well, we're talking about communication. This is what parents like. Now, I'm sure from this lovely audience, some of you are parents and some of you have children who are making choices to go to university or to go to college. As parents, if your children or someone at this age was to get an offer or get to know about a university or a college through one of those channels, how convinced would you be? Or would you like a more traditional approach because when it comes to India, parents have a very, very important role. They're probably paying the fees or taking a loan on their financial condition. So I'm just keen to hear from all of you. Would you as parents, any part of the world, it doesn't need to be Indian parents, feel comfortable if we were using some of these new names that I'm hearing, because I'm not technically that savvy and I'm not on the fancy things like TikTok, but from your perspective, would you rather have an email, a sealed envelope, a fax? Would you be all right with Instagram saying, I've got it? Yeah, Astha's laughing because I said the word fax. Stop, Astha, stop. But I'm just giving examples. Yeah, that's fine. So anyone in the audience has an opinion?
I think I'm a parent and I'm an ICR as well. So if my student was to do a research on Insta, or would have a feedback on Insta or YouTube video as a parent, and I'm an Indian parent and my reputation precedes me. So therefore, I'm going to do a lot of ref check, and I'm going to try and find somebody I know at the university to understand what's been the first-hand experience. Because especially for parents in this region, we fund the students' education. So we really want to do the quality check and be very, very sure that the institution is a valid institution and it's not just an aspirational one which has no brick and mortar. I know we spoke a lot about it yesterday. But yes, as a parent myself, I will not rely completely on TikToks, YouTube videos, 5-second messages. I'm sorry, but I'll definitely go on to the university's website, which I think is which will validate and which will assure me that this exists.
Absolutely. I think I completely resonate with Tanushrie's comment here because I'm a parent myself. Parents in India will be more convinced with a face-to-face interaction because that gives a sense of validation, and I think word of mouth is unbeatable in India. The younger generation is definitely reliant on social media, but as parents, face-to-face.
Okay, I have a slightly different perspective. I think, I'm talking about my daughter and her friends, and they're not at that age yet. She's 13, but she started thinking about these things. But they don't read anything. You tell them to read a website, they're not going to read it. So I'm very glad if she gets interested in a video she's seen, because that then gives me the ability to tell her, okay, now, do you know more about this? And that actually does lead her to the website, which is a great thing. So there's no harm in seeing a video. I think it's what you do with it. But as an initial connect, she's not going to read. Doesn't matter what I tell her. She's not interested in reading anything. She wants to read fantasy. She wants to read novels. She doesn't want to read information about things that can change her life. But if she sees an interesting video and gets interested, absolutely.
Thank you, Paul.
One point, sorry. So I want to highlight here is that how you are using social media. Are you using social media to engage the audience, or are you using it for information dissemination? And if you're using it for information dissemination, amazing. You can involve your alums, you can involve your current students, you can put some marketing messages across. But if you are looking to engage, you need to have someone who is engaging them. Otherwise, the situation will become like one case study I have started during my MBA. There was a case study called United Brake Guitars. So on United Airlines, there was a case by a musician whose guitar was broken, and he has posted on social media, and there was a huge furor regarding United Airlines is not doing proper jobs of handling people's luggage, and there was not proper responses from United Airways at that point of time, and that created a huge backlash. So if someone is using it for student engagement, it has to be moderated. If it's being used as information dissemination, great. And third-party information dissemination will have more value than marketing messages by the university.
Hello, Ritika. I would like to add on. I'm going to speak as myself. I was an international student in 2021 in Canada. and I'm a digital marketer. I'm marketing for USC. So I'm going to talk about like from both perspective as a digital marketer and as a student. Well, social media definitely impacts us. I myself went online and like on Instagram and everywhere, and I did a lot of research about the campus, how is the student life, what are the alumni speaking, but that was not the final thing for me. That was just attraction for me, like the images and everything, but my decision was based on the website. I went to the website, how the college people were communicating with me, and there were a lot of other factors. So I don't think, and I interacted with a lot of students. They're like 20, 21, 23, like all kind of age background students, and they all do their research very well these days, and it's a mixture of both. Social media also impacts them definitely, but how the university responds to them and contact, work with them together also plays a major factor in their decision factor.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for participating. I'm going to draw your attention to the report once again. With the findings of the 10,000 voices, we've mapped it to the Sustainable Development Goals that the UN has announced. So I'm going to remind you, when you're looking at the data facts, please bear that in mind. Now, talking about the impact of SDGs and the causes and the social causes on academics and the career choices that students make, I'd like to hear from the panel, when you're engaging with those young minds, how aware are they? How much importance and impact your conversations have on the SDGs while engaging with them about university choices? I'm going to start from here this time, Sonu.
Thanks, Ritika. I think, when it comes to SDGs and the students' career choices, I would like to first throw some information about the UK. UK ranks third as per the Scopus output. The number of research outputs that UK produces, we rank number third. And the Deloitte Global Report in 2022 survey shows that both Generation Z as well as millennials, they are very concerned about the climate change, and they are investing heavily into environmentally sustainable choices, which means that, students, while they are making the career choices or even in the course choices, they are very much focused about the SDGs, especially around the climate change. So I think, a lot of universities are also, offering, either they are offering newer courses in those areas, or they are involving students or students are, they are taking initiatives in making sure that, universities work towards those sustainable development goals. So it it could be that, doing some kind of, awareness program, or doing any kind of workshops, or even a student-run community. I think these are some of the things that, students are looking forward to, and I think in the UK we have a very well, a good support system for students. Whether they are looking for, any kind of support academically or even non-academically, it is all available for them within the university. And I think, UK takes pride in providing those kind of support to the students. So that's from my perspective from the UK.
So awareness about SDG, I think it's increasing. My daughter is in class 4th, and she was talking to me that here in my school, students and faculty are talking about SDGs. So definitely there is a lot of talk regarding SDG, but what people are doing with them. And if you look at SDGs, if you see all the goals that are there, I don't think there is any sphere of study or any sphere of university operation that is alien from SDGs. It's about, involving students, faculty, or corporates, industries, and, politicians in the whole process, and ensuring that we are coming with actionable item and how those actions are going to affect everyone. If you see India itself, in recent years, look at diesel cars and gasoline cars, how they are getting, at the verge where they will not be operational in coming 15, 20 years. The pace of adoption of electric cars has increased manifold. I still remember 15 years back, I used to think, what will happen if we will run out of gasoline? will we start using horses? But no, the industry and everyone found a solution for that. And think about chlorofluorocarbons. There was an ozone hole, and then refrigeration was a big challenge. How the refrigeration industry will work, but they found a solution. There is a need for research collaboration. Whether it will be university specific, I don't think so. There has to be collaborative approach, and that collaborative approach will involve not only universities, but as I mentioned, various other stakeholders.
Well, I'll take that. I could go on for a very long time to talk about sustainability at New Zealand, because New Zealand obviously are leaders for renewable, in the space of renewable energy, and I don't really want to talk much about sustainability at New Zealand because we're conscious of time as well here at this point of time, but it's very important that I mention that the University of Auckland has been extremely proud in the past years, in 2019, 2020, for having ranked #1 in the Times Higher Education University Impact Rankings for its contributions in the space of sustainability through teaching, learning and research. And I think this comes from the all-government policy that the New Zealand government has towards sustainability. In fact, it's being a part of their trade policy to emphasize on sustainability and inclusive growth, bringing the indigenous communities to work towards environmental protection as well. And having said so, we're not just, so you can obviously see that it's a reflection of the national policy, and everything that they do around is working towards the sustainability. But what's more interesting is we haven't stopped our endeavors at New Zealand. We are actually extending our wings and spreading them through to different countries to create sustainable communities. And I would really want to mention 2 important projects that we've done as a part of University of Auckland, both for the UG and PG students, and they've been really interesting findings. I have to actually mention this, that the Indian universities are doing amazingly well in the space of sustainability as well. So in that way, I think in our endeavor, we're trying to create those sustainable communities and spread sustainability in our own ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Ritu.
I think in the Australian space, it's pretty similar to New Zealand. We are sisters together. From a recruitment perspective, I think one change which I have witnessed is that there are a lot of students these days asking for courses related to environment, water management, water protection, which was not the case pre-pandemic or a few years back. So I think from a larger country perspective to the student demand as well, things are moving in this space very rapidly. We just have to watch the space and follow it as quickly as we can.
Thank you very much. I think we're on the hour. Joyce has given me the cue, so I'm not going to take any more of your time. Thank you very much for sharing your perspective, and thank you for being a lovely audience who've been able to interact with us.